today.
Okay. That definitely does bring us to 2020. And I think that what we should just do, if you could just, just say what you feel, say what you think, about where we are now in 2020. And I'll just go around. Dana?
I would say that we need to revisit Malcolm's intent to go to the UN because, one, our humanity is not under question. It is the inhumanity of the people that did this and their descendants who continue to do this, and that the criminalization of African people, there needs to be a charge against the United States for what has happened to African people thus far. So for 2020, I think we need to relook at Malcolm's intent, and we need to follow through on that. We're no longer in the civil rights era. We're in the human rights era.
I will just make note that Phil O'Neill's, I can't pronounce his name, George Floyd's brother, went to the UN with exactly this point.
Absolutely.
Sharif?
Yeah, I would say, and just like the fellow panelists said, like this, the context changes, but the underbelly, the roots of this tree that grew out of the manure of racism of America is still in existence. The fruit may look prettier, but it is as rotten to its core as it has always been. When you look at criminalization of blackness in this country, really generated capitalism that had not been seen before in the world, and it's racism at the root that does that. When you think of somebody like John Punch, who was an indentured servant in Virginia or Maryland, I believe, and same place a little while after 1619. This is he and two white indentured servants ran away.
Yep.
They were captured because they did not, finish working their prescribed term. The two white indentured servants were given a nominal slap on the wrist, so to speak, as compared to what John Punch did. Maybe they had to do more years. John Punch was given servitude for life.
And his children.
And his children, right? And so what that means was they criminalized the same act that two white people did in tandem, together. So when you think of today in 2020, and you look at mass incarceration, you look at the brutality that the police unleash with state government help, aid, and military equipment, those kind of things just continue. And I think on the other side, when I think of our youth and our education, I think it's extremely important that we let them know that 1619 was not black people's first experience on this side of the earth.
That's right.
So that they don't think that their first time on these shores was in bondage, was in this type of, they should recognize that the first time that they were in these shores were as seamen, as explorers, as Abu Bakr, the uncle of Mansa Musa, coming to explore with hundreds and hundreds of people. And when historians look at interactions that they had with the indigenous people, that continues. So we need to hold that, which happened prior to 1619, as well as what's going on in 2020, and help our youth connect the dots between it all. Because we know slavery is not the start of our history. It was a large interruption, that crater, that meteor that I talked about earlier. It was a meteor interrupting our history.
And just to piggyback off of both your...
Not piggyback, piggyback. My man.
I just want to emphasize, especially when it comes to our students, especially today in our society, it's like a lot of mirages and camouflages about what the reality is. And there's so much information about this data set and this data set, and you can really manipulate any of that to prove a certain point, an idea that you want to prove. And I think fortunately within our society, that has left a lot of our children confused, They don't want to be bad people by thinking negatively about white, right? No. And even the idea of even what they're being taught that like somehow by doing that, you're racist. That racism is some zero-sum game that, blacks and whites can also do together, which is stupid. Yeah. So I just really want to emphasize the point that, in our society, American society, especially today, and our ancestors knew this, past generations knew this in their vein. And I think it's been forgotten for the most part in this generation. But if you can't acknowledge, admit, or recognize that black people were never meant to be free in this country, then you hold anti-black views regardless of your racial identity. And so knowing the history, knowing the context, knowing the wickedness of this culture and society which has created the current circumstances, I think knowing all those things will allow folks to transverse like our ancestors did and develop imagination and the tools necessary to actually think of something beyond the point where we find ourselves at, which I would argue is not that far from 65. So.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This was really, I'm glad that this is being recorded so that people will be able to go back to this, because I know that we've gotten through a lot of stuff really, really fast, but you know, there's a lot of meat on that bone.
Absolutely.
Right.
Michelle, was Ron Brown thanked in the beginning of the program?
So I'm glad that you brought that up. Ron, excuse my back to you. Ron was here earlier today, and he was able to get 400 years in 2 minutes, which means he didn't get a chance to truly give it its just due, but he did get a chance to share. So I think this is a good time to acknowledge.
We need to thank Ron Brown. Our young people are going to hear that Mayor Kennedy and Governor Wolf have created a city and state holiday. Ron Brown been fighting to have Juneteenth recognized by not only our communities, by this city and this state for years. So we need to give it up for Ron.
All right.
All right.
I'm like, wait a minute, I just heard. Okay, there we go.
What you all can't hear in the background is that we are watching you live on many different devices. So this is our time where we're going to give you a chance, and I guess your 30 seconds to say some final words, each of you, to our audience.
I think I just did. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I would say, our existence in United States, which I normally call united in racism states, because that is really what keeps this entire republic together, and in so many ways. I would encourage us to tap into what medical science called, I believe it's pronounced drapetomania, which was this fervent desire for freedom in black people, that it was such a thing that they called it a medical condition. That if you did not want to submit to white savagery, my mom said I couldn't call it white supremacy anymore.
That's
so
right.
white savagery, if you're just refused to submit to that, they said you had a medical condition. May we all have that medical condition, and may we pass it on to our grandchildren, and they pass it on to theirs.
I guess the thing I would say is an African proverb. If the drum beat changes, the dance steps must adapt. And I think, whatever storm comes about, because there's storms in America all the time. People talking about Trump is the biggest storm ever. I'm like, I remember Reagan. Even if I was a baby, I remember Reagan, and he was the devil. But it's just very important that we remain conscious and awake and not get complacent and think that we have reached somewhere just because we got some black faces in high places, or just because Juneteenth is a national holiday.
Excellent. Well, panelists, everybody went?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
All right.
I said everything that I wanted to say, and I co-sign
All of this.
We thank you.
We thank you. Thank you for facilitating
Thank
and
you.
inviting
Beautiful,
us.
yes.
All right, so everybody in the house who hear me from the front to the back, let's give this applause. We are the Philadelphia Juneteenth, and we're going to roll right into an amazing video with Opal's Walk. Let's look now. 5, 4, 3, 2, let's hit it.
Awesome.